let's talk about moon's debilitation point, and then maybe we can look at the moon's exaltation, which is the opposing sign on the other side of the axis in Taurus. Let's start with the significations of Scorpio. Scorpio represents defiance, passion. It's Mars' sign, so it has this intensity. It's the feminine sign of Mars. So it comes with emotional intensity. It has a kind of a harshness to it too. So there's a sense of emotional harshness to the sign of Scorpio. It has to do with depth. It has to do with desires. It has to do with opinions. And it's a very independent sign at the same time. So it's taking all the qualities that are in Mars and it's injecting emotional intensity behind it. And then when we look at the moon and what does the moon represent? The moon represents our minds, represents our body, represents our emotions, our internal self, our sense of happiness, being grounded, being content. Moon's also very desirous. And moon is always fluctuating, so looking for a sense of settlement where it can just find itself in a secure situation. When you put moon in Scorpio, because the sign of Scorpio, it's also desirous. And by the fact that it's desirous is telling us that it's searching for something. There's a kind of a lack and a gap in Scorpio. It creates the mind, the sense, the inner subjective sense is that there's a sense of scarcity in this sign. And the moon is trying in a very intense kind of way, in a very passionate kind of way to meet its desires. So moon in Scorpio, its debilitation is talking about lack of settlements because of this intense nature, the intense nature of this sign. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but is that also someone who just feels a lack of in general?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When we eat, for example, and we feel full, we don't have desire for food anymore. Desires are always denoting like the things that we really want. And we passionately want them, intensely want them, is because there's a lack, there's a hunger there.
Could that also create someone who's a hoarder who just doesn't want to throw things out because they're just so, they've never they're always wanting things.
Yeah, it's a scarcity mindset because the moon represents our subjective mind and how we perceive and interpret things based on our feelings and emotions. And because there's that desirous nature, there's a sense of fear and about what if it's not enough? What if I need it later? So there's a scarcity paradigm when moon and Scorpio come to join each other.
Okay, so somebody like that is definitely going to keep everything.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could say something about hoarding. It could also, the sign of Scorpio also has to do with secrets too. Taking the intensity, the passion, the secret, the desire. Like, for example, infidelity can come out of this kind of placement. We could attach it to envy, jealousy. It starts to take connotations of things because even when we're envious of someone, for example, or jealous of someone, we want, again, is saying something about that desirous aspect of things. We intensely want what someone else has, So the debilitation of the moon in the sign of Scorpio is just telling us that the moon, who really wants its desires met, moon not only represents care, but also wants care. So those things are being challenged because of the sense of lack that it feels in the sign of Scorpio. And
is there also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, because it's the moon, is there also some type of mother wound type of lack of motherly care, or maybe lack of mother, maybe mother passed early?
Yeah, the sign of Scorpio represents harshness and defiance, and the moon represents the mother. So that sense of the gap and the lack within or the scarcity could come from not receiving that emotional and that security paradigm that the person needed. So now they're aiming to passionately and intensely get it for themselves. So yeah, it could indicate that because the moon represents the kind of nurturance that we get. And the sign of Scorpio is saying something about the harshness that's in that sign, the defiance and the independence. You don't want an independent mother. You want a mother who can care for you and nurture you and you can depend on them. An independent mother might kind of push you to also be too independent and go get it yourself. And a lot of moon Scorpio people are super successful because they have this drive to get, the drive and the need to have. So they're fueled. There's this just inner intensity towards getting things and getting things done and achieving things because they really want that sense of security and stability. So if someone looks at their chart and they have a debilitated moon in Scorpio, that does not mean that you cannot attain worldly success. A lot of people can't actually do it because it gives you the drive to do it, that desire to do it, and it's intense and it's passionate, and it can take things very far to get to where it wants to get.
But do they suffer from a lot of like anxiety, like mental depression? Like it's the moon, right? So it's the mind. If it's, are they constantly like plagued with like mental, not maybe mental illness, but depression, anxiety, or something?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it depression because it's Mars' sign. So it's going to have more of an anxiety that's stemming from fear, if anything else. It's not a depressed kind of a sign. So yeah, it's more along the lines of anxiety or someone, you know how some people have battles in their head with people? Like someone so said this or said that. Now you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, you're rebuttaling them and you're fighting them in your mind and you're having emotion. You're actually talking to them in first person, like you. Instead of saying they did this, in their mind, they'll say you did this. I can't believe you did that to me. I can't believe you went there. I can't. But so it's as if they're talking to the person in a very present kind of way. So this indicates actually self-harming anger. Like you're using your mind to battle yourself while you're fighting another person within your mind. Scorpio can have this, and this is very damaging over long term. It causes like this internal aggression, and this it can create these kinds of feelings, and it can create anxiety in that way. But it's not a sign where you get depressed per se. Even though Scorpio has a rep for being dark, it's not depressed. It's strategically in its mind thinking like how it could rebut, how it could fight you back, how it could get what it wants. That's what it's doing in its mind.
Okay, when you talked about infidelity, is that
Yeah.
infidelity on the person itself, or maybe because of the mother? Like, could it be to the moon, right? I don't know. Could it also be the parents?
It could be related to the parents too. So parents as in the mother or the one who's nurturing. It could also be about depending on which house is fallen into and what the rest of the configuration is. But one of the signs that is very much connected to infidelity is the sign of Scorpio. And then when you put moon here, because of his desirous nature, if it gets attracted to someone, it has this deep, intense attraction. And it has that independent nature where it can get that self-orientation of how it wants to meet its own needs and its desires. And it's a sign that has to do with secrets. In that sense, Scorpio is has a bit of darkness in it. So it can do all of this to meet its desires. It has that proneness to break the boundaries of what is fidelity. So it can go outside the bounds of a relationship or a marriage or what have you.
And does it kind of show, like, since we're on the topic of infidelity, is there a way to see, is it like a one time thing or is it a multiple? Like, is it a serial cheater?
Okay, there's something deeper to understand here than how many times someone will do it. You know that saying, once a cheater, always a cheater?
Yeah.
Reason for that is because it's saying something about that person's mind wiring. Because there are some people that just because of their own internal processing, they just can't bring themselves to do it because they'll think like, I have to live with that guilt. I'm betraying that person. So a person who can do it one time, there's something about that wiring that can bypass all the normative ways, all the things we associate to loyalty and all of these kinds of things. So the question here with Scorpio is, what is it about the sign that can allow someone to even do that one time? Which has to come back to that defiant, independent, desirous, intense, secretive nature of Scorpio. So if you have that kind of a mental configuration, because the moon is here and the moon represents the mind, the person inherently has this. Now you want to look at the rest of the chart and be like, is there anything that's bringing a different kind of value system to this so that the person knows how to control themselves? Like this is very prominent when people are young. They get overtaken by their passions, for example. If they desire someone, if they have a crush on someone, and it comes to that moment of kissing, they have a very hard time overriding that sexual drive. The sexual drive will take the seat and they will just follow through. And maybe later they'll be like, oh my God, that was like my buddy's girlfriend. What the hell did I do? So Scorpio almost has this inherently as part of its wiring and configuration. So we want to look at the rest of the chart and be like, is there Jupiter who's putting the moral aspects of things onto this person? So even though this drive is within them because the moon is there, they will be able to have that sense of value that I'm not going to do this. Do they have a Saturn that's going to restrict this? Do they have a Mercury that's given them a power of discernment, aspecting it somehow or related, somehow connecting to the moon here? So that's what we want to look at. But in terms of that wiring is there. So how many times are they going to do it? That depends on, are the things on the rest of the chart saying that this person can exert that kind of obstacle for themselves not to pass that boundary?
I guess a lot of people would have the question, like, some people, everybody's different, and for their own kind of reasons, some people are like, you know what, it was a mistake, it was once. They still love me. That saying, it's like, he still comes home to me.
Yeah.
And our family, let him do what he wants. Like some people are totally fine with that. So that would also be seen, but I guess you'd have to look at the whole chart.
Yeah, you have to look at the whole chart. But the recipient of that who will do the forgiving is not represented by Scorpio, because Scorpio people are actually themselves quite unforgiving of such acts. So I'm not saying that they can never do it. Again, look at the rest of the chart. But usually the people who are on the receiving end of this kind of action are dealing with someone who has Scorpio placements, and especially moon in Scorpio can do this. For example, a moon in Scorpio person can feel very inclined, if they're not getting what they want out of their own relationship, so they're not sexually feeling fulfilled, emotionally not being fulfilled, their desires are not being met, they can develop that intense desire and passion for someone who's giving them that attention, and they have this proneness to go outside of the marriage to meet that. That's the defiant part of this sign. And when you have moon in Scorpio, because the moon has to do about needs, the sign has to do about desires, the moon is desirous, and it's got these lacks and gaps that it's constantly negotiating with. So it has this proneness to this.
And then the secretiveness, that's in general. That's not just, it could be for a lot of things, not just infidelity.
Yeah. For example, Scorpio is a sign that it's a very emotional sign. It feels emotions very intensely, but it will keep those emotions a secret too. So it's not just always that it's keeping secrets or is doing sneaky things and it's becoming its secret, but it doesn't reveal its interiority while it's a very busy interiority. It's like a volcano in there, but people don't get to see it because it even keeps that hiding and in the background. And Scorpios have a way of testing people a lot, in a sense of they're always trying to figure people out. They're trying to figure out people's emotional landscapes. They have this kind of a reputation because of that defiant passion and the intense emotions that are in this sign. You know, they always say, like, we see people the way that it has nothing to do with other people. Like how we see other people, it doesn't necessarily have something to do with how they are. It's how we are that we perceive them a certain way. This sign has so much emotional intensity within it that it assumes, it projects that onto other people, that they also have that intensity. That's why they become so observational and trying to figure you out and trying to read inside of you to see what you're feeling. There's an assumption that everyone has that desire, that's tenaciousness that's within them. So when they say Scorpios have trust issues, for example, they're always testing other people to see, are they grounded? Can I ground myself here? Can I anchor myself here?
Is that because they didn't have that early nurturing?
It could indicate that, right? Because the moon represents the mother. So yeah, it could say that.
Or not a stable home, or you said like scarcity, like maybe they just grew up.
Yeah, or with parents who didn't provide them with enough nurturance. You know, when we're talking about sign of Saturn in Cancer, the person can be parentified. So they take the role of parenting the parents. In the sign of Scorpio, the parents could be making the individual too independent when they actually should be dependent on someone. So when they later in life, when they have to depend on someone, they can't trust that feeling. You know, that's why they go into this overdrive of analysis of the other person and observing them. Can I trust them? Are they trustworthy? They need to earn my trust. So they get these kinds of slants. And Scorpio sign in general has this quality.
Oh, with any planet, depending, it could affect it.
This sign has harshness in it, because of its intensity. Like, you don't want Venus or Moon, which are both feminine, soft, receptive planets. They feel harmed in this sign. It's emotionally almost cutting because of its independent emotional ways of being. It's self-oriented. The softer planets here have a hard time, even though it's a female sign, it's a feminine sign, sign of Scorpio. It's still a difficult sign for Moon is just straight up debilitated in there, and Venus struggles here. Oddly enough, Mars can do well here, but it gives it an extreme sense of self-orientation. It becomes too independent. It can become very untrusting of other people's emotions, and it can become very cutting with its emotions. It's a difficult sign to negotiate and navigate. It's the sign of Scorpio in general. And the moon is one of the most nurturing, caring, soft planets. And it has to do everything with our mind and our body. You know, we want a sense of care and lightness and softness and fluidity. But this intensity in the sign, it's a hard one to negotiate with the softer planets.
So that, I guess they have to navigate life. I mean, obviously it's whatever, however the other placements are.
Yeah.
But is it that they're kind of tortured internally by secrecy and stuff like that?
They could be, right? They might have to also keep secrets within. They probably have a conditioning from childhood in the terms of like family dynamic and mother to keep secrets. There's always a reason why we become who we become because of the experiences that we have. So transparency, honesty, truthfulness requires you to feel safe in life. The minute that you become secretive, the minute that you become distrustful or untruthful, is because of lack of trust, and it has to do with you needing to control a situation. We lie to people a lot of time because we're trying to control the other person. But if we felt like we could just be fluid with other people and there's a sense of security, we could just tell the truth, even if the truth is not pleasant. There's trust, you know, we don't need to control the situation. So it's telling us, like, yes, the person has come to this point because they have felt a lot of situation that didn't make him feel secure, anchor, trust. So the sign of Scorpio is telling us something about the person in terms of their journey, not just like instantly who they are. It's because they're a Scorpio sign and moon is in Scorpio or whatever it's in Scorpio. So yeah, it's telling us something about the path that they had to travel in this life to have arrived at a place where they need secrets, or they know how to keep secrets, or why they keep secrets. And whoever that keeps secrets is indicating something about controlling other people, because you're hiding the truth. You're not letting it be transparent. And why are you doing that? Because you're trying to create a kind of an opinion or a perception. And the moon has a lot to do with our opinions and subjectivity and how we perceive. So we can see control issues in the sign of Scorpio because of this factor or the symbolism in the sign of Scorpio, how it operationalizes things. So there's a lack of transparency, there's control issues, there's a lack of trust, there's need for control. Yeah, it's just, these are themes in Scorpio.
So even as a partner, it could be somebody who's quite controlling.
Yeah, it could be that, right? Depending where it's falling in the chart. Yeah. And it makes it difficult. I mean, it could be placed in a chart in a way where the couple have secrets together too, right? But somehow this sign is indicating something about that. And their secret could be so benign as they're not letting other people know about their internal processing, or their secret could be very malignant that if they were to let it out, they could destroy a whole village or a town.
But in general, somebody with this placement is going to have secrecy.
Yeah, that's what the sign represents, is one of its main
Yeah.
significations. Yeah.
Yeah. So that in itself is mentally draining.
Yeah, it's creating, so the signs are operationalizing that house, or they're dictating to the planets in terms of how you can act. So secrecy is part of the symbolic representation in the sign of Scorpio. So whatever planet that comes there, the sign is saying, like, I'm going to create situations in life where you will learn the lessons of what it means to have secrets or to have to be secretive. And then it's bringing these issues of control, trust, security, all of these. That's what I'm saying. Moon in Scorpio is dealing with scarcity, and there's, in Taurus is the security paradigm. In the sign of Scorpio, when the moon's there, we're talking about the scarcity paradigm. Security, scarcity. Yeah.
Is there any positive outlooks with this placement?
Yeah, this placement can make people very, very successful. Because think about it. I mean, let's say you're in the higher echelon of society where you're dealing with secrets. Very good at doing this in terms of the desire and the passion to succeed because of the scarcity, because of that fear, because of that lack and that gap. And because it's Mars' sign, it makes a person very tenacious in life. That I need to go get it, I need to have it, I need to be successful, because they want to feel secure. That control, that need for control, and that fear that you're going to lose control, you're trying to remedy it. So you can get very successful human beings here. You can get people who are emotionally independent and can create a very unique kind of an individual, how they express themselves. So yeah, it can endow one with a lot of success, actually, even though the moon is debilitated. But because its success is coming from a place of trying to remedy that harshness that's coming through the sign.
But I guess from that success, they're probably not going to have much mental peace.
Sixth house?
No, I said even if they're
Oh,
successful with the
success.
moon. Yeah, successful. I'm saying with
Yes.
the moon sitting there,
Hmm.
their peace of mind is probably like strained.
Yeah, it's hard for them to find that peace of mind. And the thing is like a lot of people will want something and then they'll get it and then they'll be like, okay, I have it. It's not even as good as I thought it would be. I don't want it anymore. But with this kind of placement, you get it and you're like, why is it not enough? I need to get more. I need to get more. This is one of the reasons why they can become successful. Because that passion and that desire doesn't die out. That intensity, even when they get it, there's still a sense of emptiness. It's like, I need more. Why is this not filling up?
Isn't
So
that a Rahu trait?
Rahu creates a sense of distortion. So it amplifies and it magnifies things and it can make things feel that it's not proportional. And you could actually lose your objective in some ways with Rahu. Like you just know you want more, but you don't necessarily what of. But the tenaciousness in this sign and the kind of passion that it has an aim, is directing itself towards something. This is another reason why it can make people very successful in this sign. So no, Rahu creates distortion in a lot of ways, but the sign of Scorpio is actually one of Mars's signs. It has clarity about what it feels it needs or desires.
But I
But
guess
yeah,
putting Rahu here, if you put Rahu here in Scorpio, it kind of like be intense.
yeah.
Just got that hunger.
Yeah, you know what? I don't see Rahu as hunger per se, amplifies. So if you're already hungry, you're going to feel very hungry. If you already feel lack, it's just going to amplify that lack. So Rahu is just, that's why Rahu doesn't have an aspect in traditional astrology, because it's literally like taking a magnifying glass and just putting it on something, and a word that it's like this big, suddenly it's like this big. So in your mind is just everything. It's everything. You can't see anything. Nothing else matters. Everything's so small compared to it. So if you're hungry, yeah, the word hunger is just oomph big. That's all you can see. That's all you can think of. That's all you're obsessing about because you think that's all that there is. Rahu does that kind of a thing.
But then Rahu in a Scorpio, is it just okay, so you're saying if you're so deep into infidelity or secrets or lies or all this stuff, you're like consumed by it.
I'm saying that if you're at Rahu in the sign of Scorpio, or any sign for that matter, it's saying something about your lack of experience in that area of life. And in this life, it's going to amplify it for you to learn it. So
Okay.
you come to this world with a security paradigm because K2 sitting in the sign of Taurus. You think that things should be secure. I'm going to show you instability and insecurity so that you learn independence, so that you learn harshness, so that you learn defiance, so that you learn what it means to be passionate and have distinct feelings of lack and gap within yourself to be able to go and get it. Things are not going to be as straightforward. We're K2 sitting in Taurus. You're not going to have abundance, and there's so much of it that it can be transparent. Things are going to be hidden. You are going to deal with secrecy. So yeah, it's showing you. That's why it's confusing. The nodes are confusing because it's trying to take you to the horizon of your life, a place that you've never been. So it's an unfamiliar territory, and that's why the nodes are always confusing. And when you put it in the sign of Scorpio, for example, Rahu in the sign of Scorpio, it's trying to teach you about the depth of emotions and all the negative and the positives that could come out of the sign of Scorpio because of his tenacity, passion, desire, all of those things. You come into this world lacking those things, like being illiterate in that sign. And it's trying to create literacy. And it
And do you get
challenges.
any help from that Taurus Ketu?
Yeah, they are comfortable with the security paradigm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
wherever that there is a sense of security, stability, abundance, they're gonna feel like that's what they should rely on. But something in life will pull the rug from under their feet so that they fall back into the scarcity paradigm. it's almost as if when you have the nodes in this axis, life is trying to teach you, how do you build from nothingness? When you have nothing and there's scarcity and there's lack, how do you rebuild? So that's kind of like what the nodes in this axis are doing, especially if Rahu's sitting in, what's it called?
Scorpio.
Scorpio.
And then I guess if it was reversed,
Mm-hmm.
you're coming from with that background of scarcity.
Yeah. And you're moving towards establishing that abundance.
Okay, so can you just describe what in general Taurus represents?
Yeah. When we move to the other side of the axis, the moon becomes exalted in the sign of Taurus. And we saw that in the sign of Scorpio, we're talking about defiant passion because it needs to be that way to get what it needs. Whereas in the sign of Taurus, we're talking about enduring prosperity. So there's a lot of abundance here. This is a feminine sign, it's receptive, it's about love. Think about it. We can't really love another person, which to have a beloved means you're giving to them. You better be full. If you're an empty person, it's going to be very hard to love another person. This sign has such fullness that it can love. This sign represents loyalty. You have to have a sense of fullness and trust and security to feel like you don't need to run to 10 different people to get 10 different resources just to make your day go by. You can just stick with one person and be loyal. And because there's, again, abundance and prosperity and opulence in this sign. The sign has to do with beauty, health. Health and beauty are synonymous. Like when we're healthy, we're beautiful. When we feel sick and there's a scarcity of life force and vitality, we are not beautiful. We don't feel beautiful. The sign of Taurus has to do with cooperation. We're trying to work with other people. It's a very enduring sign. It's a stable sign. It's a full sign. It has to do with art, aesthetics of things. So right away we see the contrast with Scorpio. Is like Scorpio is a little, it's missing things and it's looking for things, and then we come to this fertile, full, abundant sphere. And moon, with all of its fluctuations, all of its up and downs, new moon, I am nothing, I'm nobody, and then full moon, I am everything. It just doesn't matter. This ground will hold the moon, and moon just feels full even when it's empty, even when it lacks the light and its own perception, subjectivity, whatever it is that's on a downward decline. There's still this land that it's holding it and it's stable, and it's like, it's okay. It's okay that you feel that way. I still love you. I still want you. You're still good. This is what happens, you know? So the moon here is the most fluctuating planet that has to do with our mind. Our mind fluctuates a lot. It gets its sense of stability here and it's comfortable. It gets its comfort. These are very important things. So hence the moon is exalted. It has all of its needs met. It's dealing with the security paradigm.
Yeah, so moon is completely comfortable here, obviously.
Moon's exalted here.
Yeah,
It's at its highest point now. Right? It has all of, when a planet is debilitated, all that it means that that planet and what it signifies, it does not get its needs met. It's not supported, is not upheld, is being suppressed, repressed, and pushed down. When a planet's exalted, all of its significations, which also indicate its needs, that sign is meeting all of its needs. So it's pushing the planet up. It's elevating that planet to the highest status. So when the moon's in the sign of Taurus, it's loved, it's beautiful, its desires are met, it has stability, it has comfort, it's secure, it's stable. And the sign of Taurus also represents fertility. So there's this abundance here. It doesn't end. It's like even if things get used up, something else is being brought forth, something else is being grown here. There's this opulent nature to the sign of Taurus. So the moon will not get into that scarcity paradigm that I'm going to run out. I don't have things. Oh my God. The moon becomes very comfortable here.
so I guess peace of all the opposites of a Scorpio, peace of mind.
Yeah,
love,
yeah,
motherly, nurturing.
yeah. Because I mean, if you think about it, some of our, probably not some of, probably all of our stress in life comes from that feeling of not knowing what the next step is and then feeling very insecure. And that's what gives us anxiety. Because even if we know that, you know what, this is the worst case scenario, if we knew it 100%, we wouldn't feel so agitated and anxious. It's the fact of just feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to make the means. I don't know how I'm going to get what I need. That's the stuff that just grinds people down. And imagine being in a sign of Taurus. It's like, don't worry about it. Even if that goes, there's more coming up. Look around you. There's so much stuff. You'll never be hungry. You'll never be without. That just calms someone down, you know? There's a downside to exaltations too, right? So that success that comes from the sign of Scorpio, let's say with the debilitation of moon, you're going to see people with exalted moon a lot of time, and they're just not really doing anything. What's the incentive? Their mind feels secure. They already feel stable. What? I don't need to do anything to stabilize anything. I don't need to do anything to make my life feel secure. I feel fine. And it doesn't mean that they're wealthy. They just have that mind. That's their perception, that's their subjectivity, and it could be also their material condition. But this is one of the down points of exaltation because they're so supported. It doesn't create those lacks and gaps. So the person is not striving in this life to fill those lacks and gaps. And to fill those lacks and gaps, you're learning skill sets, you're doing things, you're meeting people, you're rubbing shoulder with people, and you're getting things. But if you don't need to do all of these things, you're not getting this is one of the reasons why the sign of Scorpio is related to depth of things, because of the things that you have to do to overcome that scarcity. You're learning so much. You're understanding people's ways of being. You're understanding how the world works, the cruelty and the harshness of the world. It's giving you a particular kind of depth. You could meet moon in Taurus and they're totally treading the waters of the shallow end of the pool because they didn't need to do these things. Their mind just feels settled. Their life circumstances are secured. There's nothing to learn. And what do I need to meet anyone and hustle? Scorpio can hustle. So, yeah, these are as for the upside, there's a downside to it too sometimes.
So is it that, like, because a lot of people would be like, oh, they're going to be wealthy and all that. It's not, it's just
Yeah.
they're content with what they have
The moon
and they
is the
don't
mind.
mentally, yeah, they don't
Yeah.
mentally feel that they need that
Yeah.
drive or hustle.
Mm. You know,
So
some
they may not be
people,
a billionaire, but they're
yeah,
still like
yeah,
happy with yeah. Okay.
yeah. So, like, some people are just naturally disposed to a certain way of being. Like you meet certain people who are Jupiterian. They're just naturally more positive, more optimistic, more um they'll laugh more. They have this good nature about them. And then you have certain people, even as children, when they come into this world, they're cranky and they're hard and they're just difficult and they're serious. They don't laugh. You can't joke around with them. They're Saturnine by nature. So the moon here too in Taurus, it can say that someone has a disposition, probably by conditioning, and it's part of their disposition also, that just has this sense of security in life. The word trust relates to Jupiter, but here they just have a sense of trust that there will always be enough. There's always a God who will bring more. They have these kinds of feelings. There's just enough. It's okay. Whereas in Scorpio, they could be billionaires, and there are some billionaires with this placement, with heavy Scorpio placement, and there could be that sense of there's just not enough. We got to do more. We got to achieve more. We got to attain more. Because their disposition and configuration is more with that scarcity paradigm. You can get these kinds of dynamics. But it's a blessing
Okay.
to be born with moon in Taurus. But you do want your mind to feel secure. That's one of the best things that could happen to a human being, because you want to enjoy life, whether if you're a millionaire or whether you're just working at any job or whatever situation you're in. That is the way to feel loved and to feel the beauty of life and to feel the goodness of life. That's what we're all wanting anyway.
Yeah, so it's good that you clarify, because I think a lot of people just automatically like, oh, you have your moon in Taurus, you're going to be wealthy.
Moon in Taurus people can also make very good athletes. I've noticed over and over in charts where race car drivers, for example, you're dealing with such fast, rapid moving environment that if you don't have a stable mind, you can't do that sport. So it just gives you mental stability. It's solid. It's fixed. It's a fixed sign. So it gives you this you're anchored, you're unmoved, unshook, like a bull. That's what the sign of Taurus is. And the moon represents your mind and your body. So you feel anchored inside of yourself. And that's a very important quality to have. So people always want to attach this moon Taurus to wealth and money, which is saying a lot about people who are analyzing the chart. Again, they're projecting what's of value to them. But this sign, when it comes especially to the moon, which has to do with the mind and the body, it's also talking about our mental faculties are stable or in place. They're not shaky and shifty, which that is a huge asset in life to have. Whereas in the sign of Scorpio, it can get shifty. If you actually pay attention to people who have heavy Scorpio placements, they have shifty eyes in some ways. They don't,
They have what?
They have shifty eyes.
Okay.
Their gaze, because they're always assessing and they're gauging it inside with their emotion, and they're gauging your emotion, and emotions are represented by water. There's always fluctuation. A moon in Taurus person, the way that they look at your heavy Taurus placement people have a very solid, stable gaze, the way that they look at you. So even in the way that it manifests itself, in the way that our physical expression comes out, these planets will show it. And especially the moon, because it's our mind and our body. Like Scorpios have an intense gaze. The eyes can get super intense. But if you actually pay attention to the pupil of the eyes, it's assessing. You can tell it's a different kind of a gaze than a Taurus. And even if it's not the moon, if it's just a heavy loaded sign with like 2 or more planets in a Scorpio sign, you can see that.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, because I know some Scorpio people. Maybe I just didn't notice. I don't know. I don't know if I felt that they had that heavy gaze. It's almost a softness, but
Scorpios?
yeah.
No, it's not heavy. It's intense.
Okay.
It's intense and it's sharp, and they're always assessing you.
Okay.
They're gauging your emotions, and they're gauging their own emotions, because it's a sign that's related to very intense emotions. Yeah.
Whereas Taurus is more of a trusting.
Yeah, it feels stable. They're
Okay.
very anchored, I guess.
Yeah, there's not that intensity. They're a softer type of person. Or like you said, the best benefit is that peace of mind. That, like, especially in today's society, that's what we're all trying for.
At any time, like even when you look at Krishna's chart, right? It has moon in Taurus. It's a stable mind. It's a centered, it's secured. It doesn't feel superfluous desires. It doesn't feel all the shiftiness and the lacks and the gaps. It's saying something about fullness. It's saying something about beauty and love and joy. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, we want these things. These are the things. Everyone who goes to work, everyone who's fighting against someone, at bottom, when you question them, they want happiness and security and joy, settlement, steadiness. They want enduring situations in life. So yeah, the sign of Taurus comes to represent all of these things. And it's a beautiful thing to have. You want that, especially when the moon, your mind is there. You want your mind to feel these things. That's what you want your state of mind to be. We're all striving for it. Like I've said this in other videos too. it bothers me when I see beginners start and then they see a debilitation or an exaltation and then they just read too much to it too. It doesn't mean that you can't have success and you can't have what you want in life. It's just when a planet's debilitated, you're just gonna have to work extra hard. It's not provided for, but because it's not provided for, the person's probably more apt to do it. If I'm not mistaken, Will Smith has 4 debilitations. Eminem has a bunch of debilitations. There are some very successful people who have debilitated or planets in exile or fallen planets. This just drives the person even more to do what they want to do in life. So shouldn't be discouraging. But I just feel like it's good not to personalize our placement so much, that we're cursed or we're blessed. We're here to live, to experience, to learn, to grow, to become. And then some of us are dealt certain cards and others other cards. Thanks for the conversation today. It was actually nice to have just a free flow conversation of what comes up.
Yeah, it was random. I liked it.
Yeah,
Should do that again.
yeah, I'd
Should
love
maybe
that.
even just do a random live one day and just have other people send us questions.
Yeah,
Or
that would
send
be
you
actually
questions.
fun. Both of us. We can answer questions. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for the conversation today. Much love. Till next time.